Ready?
Ready!
Welcome to Spill The Booch!
I don't think I'm ever going to get used to saying that without laughing.
On today's episode, we are talking about our stories moving cross country because we're both from New England. You're technically
Connecticut is New England.
Okay, cool. We learn something new every day. We both moved from New England across the country to Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. So we're just gonna kind of tell you what that looks like. I know right before I moved, I started watching a lot of YouTubers and listening to what it was like for them and the things that they learned across the way and like what their journeys were like moving out west. So we figured we'd tell you what it was like for us.
Yeah, and we know that it can be a scary thing to take on, but we really want everyone to watch this to feel really comfortable and know that it's possible for literally everybody, because I don't think either of us ever really pictured ourselves here or doing it. So we're excited to share our story with you guys.
But first, introducing the Booch of the day. Of course, it's Better Booch because it's the best Booch.
We fell in love.
We've found our one true love. It's Better Booch. And today's flavor is citrus sunrise, which is grapefruit, sage, and a type of tea that I would butcher if I said, I should know it. I was a tea person. Yeah. It's some delicious tea.
It sounds great.
Mm-hmm. So done.
It's citrusy.
Let's crack this Booch. Ooh, nice crack.
Oh, I can't drink it yet because we have to cheers. It's my bad.
Excuse me. Who taught you manners? Okay.
Ready?
Cheers! Okay.
Ooh.
Delicious.
See, it smells so good too.
It's like, we're filming this in the morning, and this is the perfect, morning Booch. We don't drink, but if you did drink, I think a little...
Mimosa.
Yeah, add a little sparkling
champagne
or Prosecco to it, and it would be so good.
Yep.
Or just, as is.
It's great.
Delicious.
Yeah.
Okay, why don't you go first and tell your story first?
Okay.
Unless you want me to.
You can go first. We came out here first, so you should go first.
I would love to.
I was sick.
I'm so sick. I'm not sick anymore, but the doctor said that the cough can linger for 2 to 4 weeks. So I'm just going to sound like a heavy smoker for a month. Good job, me! Okay, so my story starts a little bit before the move, and it actually starts about a year before the move. The company I was working for transitioned me into a new location, and I knew as soon as they transitioned me into this new venue, I was like, I can't be long-term here. It just isn't resonating with me. So I really started to think about what I wanted to do next in my life. Where did I want to go? What did I want my life to look like? So I started really looking at all different ways of life that people were living, different places people were living, and I just kept feeling pulled back to California over and over again. And about 4 years before that, I had visited my brother out in San Diego, and I was like, I know I'm going to come back and live here one day. So I just kind of landed, and I was like, move to San Diego. Great. And then I was sitting down with 2 of my girlfriends at the time, and I was like, girls, I think I'm moving to San Diego. And it was 6 months before the move would have happened. And they were like, oh my God, no way. And one of them was like, I'm actually from the LA area, and I was planning on moving back to LA. Do you want to be roommates? And I was like, I didn't even think about LA, but yeah, California's California, right? That's what any Massachusetts person thinks. They're like, it's one state. It's not that long.
It's not big at all.
It's not huge. So I started, and once I started really thinking about it in a logical way, because now it felt tangible because I had someone I was going to live with, I was like, oh, it's true. I'm in the hospitality industry, and there's not that many jobs in San Diego that aren't hotel based, and LA has a lot more opportunities. This sounds like a really good fit. So I basically got to 1 month before I was leaving, and I was set, I didn't resign my lease on my apartment. I didn't I basically had like uprooted everything. I'd ended like most of my that makes it sound like a plural romantic relationship. And the one romantic relationship I was in. And then I like started packing things up. And I gave my job my 1 month notice. And luckily they kept me on for the full month, which was really...
Well, they needed you.
Yeah. We were all leaving, so they really needed me. But it was really great because I was really afraid that they were going to like walk me. And we started thinking about what was the most logical way for us to get across the country. And since I had another friend at the time who we were moving to the same location and from the same location, we decided to get basically one of those like shipping units. I think it's like the box company. I know U-Haul has like boxes they ship across the country. So we split the cost of a box and put as much of our stuff that we could fit in half of it. So I like shipped my bed out, I shipped some clothes, some furniture, a whole bunch of stuff. And my thought process with that is that because the box was $2,000, and because I was splitting it, I was like, well, my beds cost $1,000, so like I'm shipping more than $1,000 worth of stuff out there, so it's more cost effective than like having to rebuy all of this stuff. And very important information at this time is that I did not have a job. I just quit my job and I was like, it's in your hands, universe. Whatever happens to me, happens to me. So the first day of being unemployed, I actually was following this amazing entrepreneur, and he had posted that he needed a new executive assistant and event planner on his team. And I was like, that's me. And I just kind of had this gut feeling that I was going to get this job, and I just so believed in it that I was like, there's no question of a doubt in my mind. Filled out the application and packed up my car and moved from Boston back to my dad's house for a couple weeks, and just kind of settled into like, what was my route across country going to be, because I was driving. And then I basically packed up my car and drove. I think it took us 10 days is how long we took.
And you drove with somebody.
I drove with somebody. So I knew I wanted to drive because I wanted a car out here. And at the point, the only way that I could really get my dad to like lean into me leaving was to tell him it was just for 1 year and that I would be back. And it was just like this one like Hail Mary I needed to do before I was like 26, 27 and like was gonna get married and have kids, and like, Dad, I just need to do one last wild thing. I don't know who I was marrying or having kids with at the time because I had ended all of those things. That was like my rational thoughts to my father. So I was like, I'll drive across country in a car that I bought from Massachusetts and I'll just have it the whole time, and that way it's easy to get back and forth. And I don't have to worry about buying a car on my own because that seemed really scary. So I had a friend who had unlimited vacation days, which was like such a blessing, and she agreed to road trip with me, and we picked the most bizarre route possible. Like,
it was bizarre.
We went down to like
went like this.
We went like down to North Carolina because I really wanted to go to Nashville. That was like the big thing I wanted to hit, and we ended up stopping for 2 days in Nashville and going to the Grand Ole Opry and just like doing a lot of like country music stuff that we both had wanted to do. And then we like hit straight across, but then my brother was in Colorado and he's like, come visit. So we like shot up to Colorado and then like shot down to Vegas and then like ended up in LA. And the whole drive was just a really interesting experience. Like, I still absolutely love to death the girl that I did it with, but like, you don't know how intense it is to spend 10 days in a small vehicle and having that other person drive your vehicle until you're in it. Like, it's intense. And like, their music choices and their food choices, like, you can do anything for a weekend, but like 10 days, as well as the fact that like, you just left everything behind. Like, I was going to LA and I knew one person. Like, it was scary, and I think that too, like, had a whole bunch of like stuff coming up, but it was also crazy too because like there were times that we got hotel rooms for $12. Like, just seeing the different ways across the country and like different environments and cultures and like climates, but it was really cool, and we made it with only one bump in my car, which was not by me. And she felt so bad. I was like, it's okay, but no, it's my car. And we got out here, and I had known nothing about the LA area. And I had kind of been a pain in the butt because I didn't really know what apartments costed. So I was like, I can't, like, it can't be more than $1,000 a month because I don't have a job. And like, I only have X amount of money in savings, and I know I need like at least 3 months of like money in my savings before like it will even out with a job. So she got us this place that was like newly renovated, but not in a great area. It was in Inglewood, which used to be called Inglehood.
Used to.
So there's an up and coming area of it. And that was not where we relocated to. Like, for instance, where I moved in, there was like a gunshot hole in my window that they were like, there's no point of fixing this because it will probably happen again. And I was like, cool, love it. But it was a really big experience.
And a bomb.
Yeah, my first day of work, there was a bomb outside of my apartment and I couldn't leave for a few hours. But like they deactivated it and it was fine. It was just right out front of a school, like no big deal. But in the whole, like, it just showed me like how much I still love this place, even though I wasn't in like the ideal living place. And then I got down to my last couple hundred, well, it was like the last $1,000 in my bank account, and I started to like sweat because it had been 3 months since I had a job. And then all of a sudden I got 2 amazing offers on the table back to back. I think I got one on like Friday and one on Monday. And now it's been over a year. I'm still in California, still loving it. It's definitely way different than New England, and even different than I expected it to be. But there's so many times that like I was just driving on the Pacific Coast Highway the other day and I was like, this is so beautiful and this is a view that I can have in like 10-15 minutes every day if I want. And the weather is spectacular and the people are happier because it's sunnier here.
Because you're outside.
And there's just so many people who are like-minded, who want to make important changes in the world and who want to make an impact. And now, after that year in that lease, Haley and I moved in together, and like now we're like a mile from the beach, and it's beautiful, and we're in a really, really cute apartment, and things just kind of like, it took that year for like stuff to settle and like settle in and like become really nice. But like I wouldn't take back any part of that. Like I think it all created part of the story and like was worth it. I think in total moving I spent probably like $2,000 to $3,000 moving out here. And that, I think that was more on the like luxurious side. Like I took a longer period driving cross country. We stayed in nicer like Airbnbs a bunch of the time. I shipped most of my stuff out here. But yeah, I think that's, did I miss anything?
No, I think you hit everything.
Great. What's your story, Haley?
So my story's a little different. For me, I was not living in Connecticut at the time, but I was living in Rhode Island, and in this like little island called Newport, and I was working in Rhode Island, and it was a 9-to-5 at the time. I was not very happy there, and I was actually looking for other jobs. And what was really interesting was I had actually applied to one in San Francisco a few months before I decided to move to LA. And you'll find out with me that like intuition builds into a lot of my stories. And I had like 8 interviews with this company, and I got super, super close to like getting the job, but I kept like having this feeling of just, no, this isn't the job for you. And there was this like voice inside my head that just kept saying like, no, not yet, and no, not there. And so I kind of just like let that go. And then I had another interview in Rhode Island with like a Fortune 7 company. I was looking at apartments that same day. It was like 5 minutes from the beach and with right next to my cousin who was like I was really close to, and I was supposed to be so happy. And the interview was weird, but it went well. And I was definitely like a contender for the job, and I was so confused because I wasn't excited. And I was in my car going to see my grandparents about like a couple hours away, and I was just like, all right, for me, God, like I say, God, what is going on? Why am I not happy? And the message that came back to me was, it's time for you to move to Los Angeles. And so I was like, all right. And I had been thinking about LA for a little while because I had visited my friend a few months prior, not Dakota, somebody else who I love. And I really, really liked it, and it was definitely on my radar. And I wanted to start my own business, and this is such a beautiful place for entrepreneurs to come. And it just seemed like a very logical place, and I was like, okay. I didn't tell anyone for a little while. I told people I was thinking about it, but I had pretty much, by the time I was telling people I was thinking about it, I had made the decision. I was just like getting people to warm up to the idea. And then that kind of jump-started a very long process. I ended up having housing falling through. I had to move back in with my parents. I was like looking for things and looking for jobs out here. Nothing was really working out. I actually ended up getting laid off from my 9-to-5 that was in Rhode Island. I was commuting back and forth, trying to save money. I ended up getting laid off in February and just jumping in and starting my own business. And that alone was scary. and then as time went on, I came visit Dakota a couple times, and I just fell more and more in love with it every single time. And it just solidified my decision even further. And then one day I was like literally on Facebook, and it was a long process for a while because I was so frustrated because I didn't know how it was going to happen or when it was going to happen, because it was like so unclear the entire time. I just knew I wanted it, but I didn't know how I was going to get there. None of the jobs were falling into place or anything like that. I remember like crying to Dakota because I was like, I'm so sick of being here. Sorry, Connecticut. I want to move. I'm so ready to go. And then literally like one random afternoon, this girl posted on Facebook that I had never met before, like that she needed a roommate. And it was just on some random like apartment hunting group thing that I had joined. And I was just like, you know what? Sounds great. And I just messaged her and I was like, I'm moving out to California on this day. I wasn't at that point in time. I hadn't told anyone that I was doing it. It just followed my gut and that this was supposed to be it. And then we made a plan and it was official. And that happened probably like late in like April was when I found her and I decided. And I told my parents and I told everyone, which is obviously like they're super supportive and so happy for me. But when your daughter tells you that they're leaving, it's hard. So I just tried to make the most kind of what time I had left with my friends and family that were there, and all the while like making sure everything was in place for when I moved. I kind of had honestly like given up on trying to find a 9-to-5 and just fully going in on my business, and really just taking that leap, which was hard, but it was worth it, and I think it made me a lot stronger of a person. And it made me solidify that like this is actually like what I want. So even if something is hard, if it's really if something like you're literally willing to leave everything on the table and go all in on it, and literally like this is really dramatic. I was like, I'm willing to die to do what I love. Like if for whatever reason I end up playing like ultimate prize, I'll do it if that means that I can do something that makes me happy. And so I ended up moving out here. I also drove. My road trip experience I was so lucky because I had a friend with me and he took such great care of me, but I got so sick. So on Monday, we left on a Monday, we ended up getting to LA on a Friday. Monday I was fine. Tuesday we made it to Nebraska, and I'm sorry for anyone who lives in Nebraska, but that state did not like me at all. We pulled into a Dairy Queen that also was a thrift store and ate there. If there's anyone who was thinking about doing that, don't do that. I got so sick from whatever I ate, and then I think too just the move, and I also like was not sleeping like the couple weeks prior, and so I just all that, like the combination of all of that just really, I think my body was like, I don't want to do this anymore, and I was so sick all night. We barely made it to a hotel. Like there was literally one room left in the hotel, and there was nothing else around. And we made it there almost like out of the Nebraska Midwest area, and I was sick all night, struggling. I couldn't even like form sentences together, and it was rough. And then we made it to Denver, and I think I got altitude sickness.
I got altitude sickness in Colorado.
So just a heads up, like I've never experienced altitude sickness. So if you're going somewhere, especially I think if you're kind of in an area like the East Coast where you honestly don't experience it that much.
No.
And then you go to Colorado, it really affects you. At least it really affected me.
And I went from Texas, which was super low altitude, straight up to like the top of a mountain in Colorado.
Yeah.
And it was like spinning, and I had to like, I went camping with my brother, and I was like, I'm going to die tonight. It's the end.
Yeah. Like, I know on top of being sick and then having that, I was like, oh my God, what is going on with my body? It was a trip. But I loved Denver. I thought Denver was so pretty. I thought it was so cool. And once you get past, like, sorry again, anyone listening to the West, but like once you get past the Midwest, for me at least, just because I don't think I necessarily don't love those sites. For me, once I got into Colorado, that day and that drive was worth like all of the rest of it, because it was beautiful, like driving through the mountains and seeing the Rockies and like the rivers and all the beautiful like greenery. And like we grew up in New England, so we're used to seeing like nature and forests and stuff like that, but it's just so different there. And it was just so beautiful and so gorgeous. And then we ended up going to Vegas. So we kind of took a route where we went through the Midwest. I think we went like Iowa and then Nebraska. We went through like Pennsylvania. And then we ended up in Colorado. And then I think Ohio. And then like, not Ohio.
You're skipping
I'm
states.
skipping
You're like going back and forth. But
Pennsylvania was first. I know that.
Yes.
I know where that is.
I don't think you could have done Ohio and Pennsylvania.
I don't know.
But maybe you hit like a nugget of it.
Yeah, I might have. We weren't in it for long, so maybe. So we kind of went like that route, and then we
You went the quickest, straightest route.
We went like straight through.
I dipped and then came up and then came back.
Yeah, because the my friends who drove out with me, we had to be in LA by Saturday because he had a flight, and he was leaving like literally the next day. So we like had to absolutely be there by Friday, and we ended up going to Vegas, but we were only there for the night. And I remember it was so interesting. I don't know if you experienced this at all, but going so quickly from places that were so impoverished and like literally pretty much nothing around, and would kill for like the kind of money that people were spending in Vegas, and to go from like nothing to pretty much just like lights and music and like people in general, it was like so overstimulating, at least for me, because I'm like super like sensitive, but also like seeing all of that like money being spent so excessively when all of these people that we had met would like kill for some of that. It was so interesting to see, and it was like really interesting. If you are thinking about doing the drive, I do suggest you do, because it gives you such an eye-opening experience to all the different forms of life across our country. And it opened my eyes. It made me understand so much more about certain things, including like things with like politics, which I'm not going to get into too much on here, but there was just so many things driving across the country. I was like, I get it now, like I understand. And also when I went to like things like Vegas, or like places like Vegas and saw that, it was like, oh, like this is literally just desire. It's like a city. It's literally like a city of desire.
Yeah.
And it was very like overstimulating. So if you're someone who's like kind of sensitive, and you're doing the drive, just keep that in mind, I think, because I wasn't expecting it to be like as like, oh my god, as it was. And then after Vegas, it was a pretty straight shot to LA. And yeah, we got to LA. How it kind of worked for me was that apartment that I had found was a very temporary situation. I moved out in May and I only stayed until July in that apartment. I literally moved out with only my clothes and like a couple of like wall decorations. I didn't have a bed, didn't have any furniture. I even left a lot of my clothes at home, and it was just like kind of just throw what I can in my car, and then whatever I can fit, I'm gonna take. And when I got here, like there was a bed in the apartment already, which was awesome. So I like for that, it was like pretty low cost for me. So if you're kind of looking for something and you just want to get out here, maybe look for a furnished apartment or a temporary living situation, kind of like I did, because I think even though it was really hard in the beginning, it was the best situation for me because it allowed me to get on my feet a little bit and like get used to being here, because the first like month or so of being here, I was just kind of getting used to things and getting used to like even just the time difference, and the way of life is so different here than the East Coast and things like that. And so after the 2 months in July, I decided it was a really interesting living situation, and I decided I wanted to move out. And I wasn't like tied to a lease or anything like that. I could leave whenever I wanted to, so I decided July was the best time. I ended up moving in with Dakota in her Inglewood apartment for a month, and then we found the place that we're living in now in September. So I got here and I moved 3 times in like 5 months. And then like, but I think it was the best thing for me because I needed to find a place I actually wanted to settle in before I settled. And we did, and we found it, and we love it so much. And I have a bed, which is great, and I got it for free, which is even better.
And it wasn't sketchy,
and it wasn't
from my bosses.
Yeah, so it definitely like everything like worked out. So I know that something like this can be so scary.
Yeah.
And there were times like even when I got here, like I was so scared. Like the first night, I cried so much. I was also exhausted, but like it was just sometimes when you get here, you expect it to be something, and then it wasn't, but then it was even better at the same time. It was just an interesting thing, if that makes any sense. Whenever you make a big change like that, things just take you by surprise. So my like biggest advice is to not have any expectations around it. If you can save money before coming out here, do it. I think I saved, I think the whole trip probably took me like $1,500, and then I also, before I moved here, like I had like a security deposit and paid rent and stuff like that. But the trip itself, like we did it pretty low cost. It depends also on where you stay in the US, obviously. Like if you're in like a metropolitan area, the hotels are gonna be more expensive, but where we were in Nebraska, like they really weren't. So it just depends on where you go. So if you're trying to do something on a lower budget, maybe find a route where you're staying is a little bit more low cost.
And sometimes you can just go like 5 miles beyond the city and there will be a hotel.
Yes.
And I mean, I always was, so I don't like to be stuck to a route. So I was always like, when in the morning before we left the hotel, we were booking our next night, but we were on like Expedia, so we were reading reviews, and like I had Expedia points, and like we were like looking at, did we want to stay in the city? What was there in the city? Or did we want to save $50 and stay out of the city and like look at it that way?
Yeah. And two, we didn't really, we had our like kind of our route, but we didn't really know where we were going to stay. And so we would get kind of close. What we were doing is we were just driving to a certain point and then trying to find a place.
Yeah.
But there were some areas that we were driving to that we looked up and it was like, you have an 80% chance of dying here. And so, like, crime rates were just, like, really, really high. So I do suggest maybe looking at that kind of stuff before you settle, especially if, like, you're traveling alone or you're just, like, kind of two women, because unfortunately, like, we do have to keep that in mind. And, like, that wasn't something I thought of at all when I was mapping
we
that
planned
out.
a really, like, we planned a route and then we deviated a bit, which is why we didn't pre-book, but, like, we had hotels that we had predetermined along the way, too, because my co-pilot was someone who, like, needed a plan, and I was like, here's our plan, but we're not pre-booking our plan, because, like, I can't be trapped, too. Clear. Dying. Keep going.
Okay. So it's definitely, like, you can do it at kind of like a lower cost. I mean, gas adds up, definitely. I think that was probably my biggest expense.
It just fluctuated. There was times that we were paying like $2.20, and there was times a gallon.
Like $5 sometimes.
And then and it was like $5.09 a gallon sometimes, and it was just like.
And like anytime you pass a gas station and you have like half a tank left, fill up, because you never know sometimes when you're gonna hit another gas station.
Yeah, once you hit the flat states, it's a long time.
Yeah.
But there are apps that you can get too that help you see where the gas stations are on your route. And that way you can know how far you are to go.
Yeah.
And we were doing about a tank a day is what I think.
Yeah.
We were getting down to like a quarter-ish at the end of each day, and then we would refill, but we were doing about a tank a day.
And if you want, definitely like bring your own food. I think that's something I wish we didn't. We had some, but we didn't really bring a lot. And then we would have to like stop and pull into like Dairy Queen, that also was a thrift store. So that's definitely something, like, especially when you hit certain areas. I know, I don't want to like talk over you. Certain areas or certain states. Sometimes like the food options, especially like, I like to eat super healthy, and both Dakota and I are plant-based.
Yeah.
So,
and I had pre-picked places I could eat along my route too, because I knew that it was going to be difficult. So I was like, oh, perfect. Like this is, and then me and my co-pilot had loaded up on like all sorts of snacks. So sometimes we would just like snack through lunch and then get, dinner and breakfast along the way. And I also knew that when I hit those lower states, being plant-based isn't a vocabulary word. There were some really great places that we found, but I went to so many places, and I even was like, hey, can I have a bagel with peanut butter? And they're like, we don't have peanut butter.
Yeah.
We have smear. And I was like, I brought peanut butter. Can I have a bagel, please?
Yeah.
And that was just like, there was a lot of tricks and tips, which I think we'll do another video on traveling plant-based, or we'll talk about it more, but there's a lot of tricks.
You're going to have a little like pamphlet too.
Yeah,
that
a little e-book course thing about all different ways to be plant-based and different activities.
Yeah. So that's kind of our very separate stories, but when we figured out we were moving together. Ha! I forgot about that part. When we both said we were moving to LA.
Yeah.
Okay. So both Dakota and I were like kind of going through this whole, like, we wanted to move to LA at the same time.
We were going through like up-leveling, like life transformations, like questioning everything at the same time, but we like weren't talking to anyone about it. Like, not each other, not other friends. We were just like going on these like solo life journeys.
Yeah, it was like a very, well, I think too for us at the time, it was just a very personal thing. And I know for me, it kind of called almost to go really inward and like have like that a lot of alone time. And then when the time came, I was a lot more open about things. And that was like kind of when we told each other we were moving to LA.
Yeah.
And it was literally, I think it was Sam Sly, right? Well, you invited me to Sam Sly, or like,
I think it was Sam Sly. I was already moving. It was before that.
Yeah.
It was probably around like our birthdays or something. We might have done something together.
Yeah.
Or it was like right when I had, maybe when I put in my 1 month or something at work.
Yeah.
Which would have been like the end of July.
Yeah.
Because Sam Sly was in September that year.
Yeah. Sam Sly is a really beautiful celebration that Dakota's family puts on.
For a friend of ours who passed away, It's a beer pong tournament. That's what she means by really
It's a beautiful celebration.
It's a beautiful beer pong tournament. A lot of really drunk people and great music by one and done. No, it's in memory of my brother's friend who passed away due to a freak accident when he was in college, and they have done 10 years of it in memory of him each year. And it just happens to be at our house because we own a ton of property, and my parents are super sick people who love giant parties, and drunk people pass out on our lawn. What can I say? Yeah, and then you had kind of just, it was right around when I said it to you, you're like, yeah, I think I am too. And I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Well then.
Yeah.
And then when it came to us moving in together, I had 2 roommates. One of them was moving in with her significant other. And the other one, him and I had been talking about like finding a place together, but I really wanted to move more to like the Venice, Santa Monica area to be closer to work. And he wanted to move downtown LA to be closer to his work. And I was like, these places are not in similar locations.
No.
Like, I want to be able to go surfing and go to the beach, and like, you want to be able to walk to work, and I'm not looking to get any more city than I am. Haley and I were just like, well, we should move in together because you don't care where you live, or like you're all happy where like.
No, I think I literally had, when we were doing like a list of what we wanted for our apartment, my only like non-budgeting thing was I want to be by the beach.
Yeah, and that was like, mine was like, I want to be by the beach too, so like high five, let's do it.
And the rest was like, as long as I have a room, which I almost did not. But
some places are a little interesting and really adventurous, which is why I think it's really hard, but I think it's really important to see the places in person before you move out here. Which is like, if you're not, luckily my roommate was out here before, so she had seen the place before we moved into our Englewood one. But like, if you're doing a Haley situation, I totally recommend like doing that short-term lease or subletting, and then being able to actually see like what is the surrounding area like, what is the actual house like, and like find a new place that really fits and like resonates with you.
Yeah, even if it's only for a month, just
yeah,
to, like,
or
be
like
able to
do an
see it.
Airbnb if you have to, or something like that. Just because like Santa Monica is known as like such a beautiful, nice area, but like you can hit parts of it that like I personally wouldn't want to live in, you know. And like, I'm not a picky person. Like, I've lived a lot of interesting places.
Yeah.
And so I think being able to be here in person, or even if you have the funds, like fly out and like come out here for a 4-day weekend and like drive around in a car and like see the different environments and places you want to live.
And that is something that I did, because I didn't really know too, especially when the first time I came to visit Dakota, which was in January. The only other places I'd really been to was Koreatown, and I didn't love that area because it was like very in like Hollywood and stuff like that, and that wasn't necessarily where I saw myself living. But I knew I really liked Malibu, but I hadn't really been to like the Santa Monica, Venice area. And so we actually, when I came here, I made it a point to be like, I really want to go to the Santa Monica, Venice area. And then we also went to Huntington, and I loved it there too, but at the end of the day, it was like too far for Dakota for work.
Yeah.
And a lot of like entrepreneurs tend to live in the Venice, Santa Monica area, and I kind of wanted to be close to other entrepreneurs too, so it just made more sense for us to be here. And so we ended up picking here, but that was definitely a huge thing when I came to visit. I really wanted to see areas that
like feel the energy.
Yeah, and feel the energy. And
what
just,
are the people like? How do they interact with each other? Like, it's such little things, but like my old apartment, I would never go outside, and now like we can walk everywhere around here, or ride bikes and stuff. And it's like, there's neighbors who say hi to me, and like,
you don't get that in New England.
Yeah, and like it's just like it's super friendly and like community based where we are, even though it is a busier populated area. Like it's very like family kind of almost feeling.
Yeah, and the thing about LA, because I'll sometimes hear people say like, oh, I don't like LA, but it's so different depending on what town you're in, because LA is so big. So like I went to like K-Town and Hollywood. I didn't necessarily love those areas. If I had only gone to those, I probably wouldn't have moved out here.
Yeah.
Because that was my vision of what LA was. And then when I went to like Malibu And then when I came out to visit you and I saw like Santa Monica and Venice, I saw myself in those areas a lot more because it's more like beachy and chill.
Yeah.
And so like also keep an open mind too when you're out here and find different areas that you might enjoy and explore different parts of it.
That reminded me a lot of Boston, because Boston has like a lot of the sub villages.
Yeah.
And it's like Cambridge is so different than Roxbury, which is so different than Brooklyn and Gino, and like so that all, and like New York is very similar to that too. Like the sub areas of it are so clear. I would say the only other thing that we haven't talked about LA is that it is kind of a car based living place. Like it's super spread out. I know people who get around by Uber, and if you don't go a ton of places, like it's probably cost effective to do that. There is, if you stay in the like beach towns, everything is like pretty bikeable. So you you could bike, but like at the end of the day, there's like one commuter rail, and it just goes from Santa Monica to downtown. Like there's not a ton of public transportation. There are buses, but they're not
that great.
Yeah, I haven't even tried to take them, and I know some people who do take them, and they're just like, they don't highly recommend them. So it is, if you're someone who, I wouldn't say don't move here if don't want a car, but like be very conscious about where you're moving and how close and far things are to you, and like having a bike and like things like that. Because coming from Boston, like I literally didn't need a car. I just had a car because it was paid off, and it was the one I had had since I was 16. And I used it like to go grocery shopping because I was too lazy to bring my groceries on public transportation. But like I only use public transportation in Boston, and I haven't used public transportation once since I've been in California.
Well, there's not even where we live like a place for us to go and use it.
Except for the bus.
Yeah, except for the bus. And so that's definitely something to keep in mind. There's also not a ton of parking, so...
No, there is.
But like... Well, I guess like...
way more parking
I guess
structures.
Compared to like Boston and New York, there's parking. I take that back.
Yeah, compared to other big cities. And actually, I find the parking in LA way more cost friendly than the parking in Boston.
Much cheaper here.
Like even sometimes like a day rate here is like
it's crazy.
$24-$30 when it would have been like $50 to $80 in Boston easily.
It is a lot cheaper here.
They have a lot of parking structures, and even like our street, you can park on our street with no tags for free, and you can always find a spot. You know, like that never would have happened in any of my apartments.
And even like beach parking, like when I was in Rhode Island, it probably was not for me because I jumped a fence to get to the beach. But if you went and you parked and then you went on the beach, it was like $15 just to park, and then they charged you another like $10 just to like step your feet on the beach. And so it costs like $30 to go, and here I think it's like
$1.50 an hour for parking.
It's
like
crazy.
Parking.
So that's something to keep in mind too. The gas is a little bit more expensive here, but if you stay within the 20-minute radius, that's kind of a joke here. It's like someone lives beyond 20 minutes, you're probably never going to see them, because 20 minutes here is
it's like
pretty much like an hour and a half.
I used to be a 19-minute commute from work with no traffic, and it could take me up to 2 hours to get to work.
Yeah.
And now I'm still technically a 19-minute commute to work, but that's with like normal flowing traffic.
Yeah.
And that's being 2 miles away from my job.
Yeah.
Which is like super close.
Yeah. So like if you're looking at it, because that was something that you were thinking of and were mindful of when you were looking, you're like, oh, that's like 5 miles away, so that's not that big of a deal.
But it's like traffic that's an hour plus.
Yeah. So be mindful, kind of like if you're moving out here and you have a job, keep in mind that it should be within like that 20-minute radius, or like and like kind of see what the traffic is like before you,
or like 3 mile max if you want it under an hour.
Kind of how I do it is like it's the whatever time the GPS says plus like 45 minutes. I
like times it by 3.
Yeah.
If you're doing rush hour.
Yeah. So something to keep in mind.
Yeah. Well, Well, that's our story.
That's our story.
That's how we ended up here on this couch talking to you.
And now we're talking to you.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for watching.
If you stayed this far, bless your kind soul, and we appreciate you. And since you like us so much, maybe you should subscribe.
Yeah.
I feel like that's down there somewhere.
If it's not, then you
Then
know,
give it a thumbs up.
like it. That's good.
Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you